1 minute. I'd like to call the July 27th, 4 o'clock school board meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see no presentations. Superintendent, did you have a report?
I have a couple of things here that I just wanted to congratulate a couple of folks real quickly. The National Training and Simulation Association. They represent businesses and organizations involved in training, simulation, related support systems, and training services for a variety of industries. And our own Hannah Nicole, who was a first-year Sarasota Technical College digital design student, won the nationwide contest. It's fantastic, and it was it was the NTSA logo contest. So congratulations to Hannah. And then also wanted to recognize our Olympic athletes. You know, we have 3 of them out there right now. Emma Wyant, who is from Riverview High School, a graduate of Riverview High School. She won the silver in the 400-meter individual medley, which is amazing. Clark Dean from Pineview School, graduate of Pineview School. He is rowing in the men's coxless 4 tonight at 9:10. So we need to make sure we're in front of the TV for that. And then Jake Alardi, Venice High School grad, men's skateboarding. His final rank was 11th. So congratulations to all of them. And then the last thing, congratulations. And then the last item is just a reminder or to tell people that the vaccination clinic at Laurel Nokomis School will be open on Saturday, 9:30 to 1:30, in case anybody needs their vaccine. So again, Laurel Nokomis School, 9:30 to 1:30 on Saturday. Thank you.
I have 20 cards at 3 minutes each. That would take 1 hour. We only have 1 hour for the entire meeting. And we have an important agenda items that we have to take care of. So what I'd like to do is do our business first and then come back to the public comment. Approval of the consent agenda is first. Are there any changes to the consent agenda?
No changes, Madam Chair.
Excuse me, are you sure? I thought we got a personnel.
Oh, that's
I don't
for the
have
third.
one in here.
Oh, that's for the 3rd. Okay, sorry. I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Please vote. Oh, sorry. And the consent agenda passes 5-0. New business, item 15.
Yes, item 15 is for new businesses, Sarasota County Schools Mental Health Assistance Allocation and Behavioral Health Plan for 21-22 school year to be approved as presented. This is one that Deb Jackalone put together with her team, and actually the DOE just sent the template, I believe, last week. It is due August 1st, so we had to put it together very quickly, or she did, and did a fantastic job. So I don't know if there's any questions, but Deb will be very happy to come up if you have any questions about that.
Ms. Rose.
Just a clarification, thank you, Mrs. Brown, please, that the mental health plan, I'd like clarified, is a state requirement, and the components to the plan are us complying with that and having it approved. Is that correct?
That's correct. As we mentioned at the workshop, the state sends us the $1.7 million, and then we have to send the plan back indicating how we were going to spend it and what we're doing with them.
And we review those pieces at more than one workshop, continued today, and all of them are available in detail online, and we're available to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
So I move for approval of item number 15 as presented. Need a second?
Second.
Please vote. And the mental health plan that we're sending to the state is approved as presented. Item 16.
I move for request from legal counsel to schedule private meeting for advice concerning settlement negotiations and/or strategy session related to litigation expenditures in Jimenez-Ruiz versus SBSC pursuant to Florida Statute 286.100.011, paren 8.
Second.
If I may, for just a moment, I understand that that particular meeting, we have to go through this process and do this request statutorily. The time period was moved from 10 a.m. till 12 noon, is my understanding. So I would ask that any motion to approve be modified to incorporate August 3rd, which is the same date, but noon instead of 10 a.m.
Ms. Goodwin, would you like to modify your?
I move to approve this motion, amending it to start time of 12 noon.
Second.
Please vote. And item 16 passes as presented, 5-0. So we will have that special litigation on August 3rd at 12 o'clock. We will also have a work session at 2, and then the board meeting at 6. So now we will have our hearing of citizens. These hearing of citizens will run no longer than 5 p.m. because we have a 5:15 budget meeting. I ask you to please be succinct, and if you could do it in 1 or 2 minutes rather than 3, I would appreciate it. Jennifer Cottrell. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say. Just wanted to speak on, I know that you were talking on workshop today about the recording of IEP meetings. As a parent of an IEP student, I think that those can be crucial at times, because sometimes you go from a meeting anywhere from 4 people to maybe 10 people. You have a lot of information coming at you from various people. So sometimes you walk out of those meetings and you know you've missed something. So to have that ability to go back and rewatch it would be beneficial as a parent, also with the student. I know a lot of people say, well, everything's written down for the IEP. The major things are written down. There's a lot of discussion that goes on behind just what's written in that IEP. Everybody has a lot of opinions. Sometimes as a parent, we're seeing this first time as we walk in. We don't get the information ahead of time as to exactly what the plan is, or what everybody has said, what our students filled out on the paperwork. So having that ability to record, again, if all parties, are okay with it, And then, like I said, I think in the workshop it was mentioned that, what if somebody, doesn't want to be recorded? I guess that becomes a part of the discussion is why don't we want to be recorded? We're doing it just so that everybody has that information, so you can remember that information, so you can think about that. Like I said, there's many times I've walked out and thought about things, and someone says, well, later on they're like, well, we talked about that, and it's like, did we? Because I don't remember it. Like I said, it's overwhelming. So to record it, we just want the best interests of our students. So if there's something that we could pick up in those meetings that we didn't get the first time around because it's coming at you in all directions, to sit back and record it. And it also prevents later down the road that he said, she said. Well, so-and-so said this. Well, did they? Because let's take a look at the recording. The recording, says this or not. It puts us away with, accusing somebody of saying something that they did not say, or taking something out of context that shouldn't be taken out of context. So to let us record it, it's not, for something that we're going to use to post on social media or to do this. It's for our purposes as our students to say, this is what we talked about, this is what was decided, here's some things that, concerns that were brought up, this is how we're going to address it. It's not to publicly bash on the internet or to use in any other way. It's as a parent, so we can make the best decision for our child, our students, as that we possibly can. So I'm hoping that you guys will support the recording of the IEP meetings for our students to be used in nice purposes. Thank you for your time.
Following up on our workshop, what we have decided is we're going to be getting a report from our IEP, our student services. How many recordings we had over 8,000 IEP, how many recordings were requested, how many weren't granted, why weren't they granted? And we have sort of looked at, rather than getting to the point of being confrontational where somebody demands a recording and somebody does not want to, let's fix whatever that problem is. So we aren't taking any action saying you can or you can't record at this time. We're encouraging our IEP teams to allow recordings, and let's try to fix the problem if there isn't a consensus, because Chapter 934 allows for dual consent when you're recording, but parents, we understand how important this is. But it's not over yet. We're still working on it, but we want to work with you. Thank you. Wilson Pava.
Howdy. So most of y'all know me as a very fierce partisan, but I firmly believe in being a straight shooter and kind of saying when the person you disagree with is right sometimes. And as far as the IEPs are concerned and the recording of them, I very much have to admit that leaning on the side of recording is definitely the best way to go as you write this policy. I have been a student, I have been a teacher, I have been an advocate on many IEP meetings over my years as being a student here in Sarasota and moving away and seeing how other institutions at different levels do it. Recording it is basically the best policy that I could advocate for, knowing that even if I know my own case perfectly, there are things that will get by me. There are things that I want to go back and check. And
Thank you.
Leading on that side is best. I know that today a lot of the conversation stems around mental health, and I do want to bring that up very importantly. And I want you to remind y'all, teachers have led the way. Teachers are the keystone in the arch that is supporting students' mental health. The board has lagged, and at times the board has worked against that, to undermine that. So situations like we have had in the past where board members would rather play political points and come back and say, hey, teachers should tell parents and out their students when they're confidentially told about a different sexual orientation that might not go down in the home. That undermines student mental health. When we tell our students and teachers and actual student advocates that schools, that parent rights trump student learning, trump facts, trump student support, what we're doing is we're actively working against the work our teachers are doing. When some of us would rather go on national media and throw teachers under the bus, would rather go in and support the political party that appointed us, that because we're beholden to them because they appointed us and then got us over a razor-thin margin in our first election, and support them in their attempt to push the truth and facts out of our history classroom, that erodes our students' mental health. That erodes erodes our students' relationships with our teachers. How could a student take a teacher seriously? How could they build a relationship if instead we have political talking points rammed down our throats and enforced in our institutions? Like I said last time, that's pure Daughters of the Confederacy, neo-Confederate BS, for lack of a term. Very tied to it right now in the middle of a pandemic are masks. And I don't know how many of y'all have seen the news, but the CDC is working on recommending that even vaccinated people wear masks, especially in a school system. So when you tell our students, go, you don't have to wear a mask. Go ahead, endanger your classmates. Go ahead, endanger your teachers. Go ahead, endanger your staff. That also erodes student mental health. And I've seen it because I was working in a school. I was working at Riverview High School, my alma mater, when we first went on pandemic and lockdown. And I saw the toll that these things can take on students. But the toll of saying you're endangering other people's lives is much worse.
Thank you, Wilson. John Wilson. And next we'll have Linda Lee Wilson. And I think they're no relation. They're different addresses.
No, we're all different. How you doing? John Wilson. What I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to my kids. Rivers will be going into 7th grade, and my daughter Olivia will be going into 3rd. So I just wanted to make sure you guys, this is why I'm here every week. Like, if I can be here, this is why I'm going to be here. The first thing I would like to address is, if you guys look at the consent, approval of consent from the last minutes, there was an email sent that's in between the people that spoke and the approval of consent. I'm going to let you guys read that. What I'm going to say, my first part is going to be addressing that email. I just wanted to attend. I attended my first board meeting with my kids because they were told that they were inherently racist. That's why I attended the first board meeting. And I'm along the lines that it's great. I love that your teachers are going to teach facts. Let them teach facts. But my children aren't going to be part of their facts that are going to be used. They don't care. None of the other things. And like any BLM, any anti-racist training, I'm going to be looking for it. And you know what? I'm going to make sure that it's out there, and I'm going to use my means as a parent and my rights to make sure that that is not forced upon them. The other thing I want to address is transparency here in our board, because I asked some questions about reading recovery last meeting, and then I get a message that oh, you know what, Laura Kingsley's on the board of the reading recovery. Laura Kingsley's on the board that she just left, I guess, as our CFO. Come on, don't you guys find that kind of, like, to me it's kind of sketchy? That all of a sudden she's on the board. She leaves her job here as curriculum, academic CFO. Now she's on the board. The other thing with transparency is, Tom says something about on some emails. Hey, we have the votes for masks. That's great. You have the votes for masks. But that erodes my trust in this board. That, okay, we already must have talked about it, and it's going to be a problem. So if we have to change the policy, it's going to be, we have the votes to make it. That's not a fan. I'm not a fan of that either. Now, for all the people that came here that want masks, that's great. But for your opinion, if you don't have kids in the school board, your opinion does not matter to me. Zero. I have zero opinion. Your opinion doesn't matter. The other thing is my kids, the CDC says that the COVID can be airborne. Now, your professionals that come here, they say, hey, great, the COVID's airborne. But let's ask them, if the COVID is airborne, do your masks work? Do your surgical mask and your cloth mask work?
Thank you.
They don't.
Linda Lee Wilson. And the next one, please no clapping, Larry Wilson.
Hi, I'm Linda Wilson. I taught for the district for 19 years. Larry and I were here early, and we listened to a bit of the ESE conversation. And I just wanted to say that it was a great conversation and that I was sorry that you didn't also have a teacher with your liaison, because several board members had questions and I thought a teacher could have answered them readily. But overall, I cannot comment on whether or not to have the audio portion of, I never had that experience, but what experiences I did have were wonderful. ESE teachers are wonderful people. Out of the 19 years, I only had one negative experience with an ESE teacher, and that teacher labeled the child in a way that I thought was not appropriate, didn't listen to me, and rammed that through the meeting, and then the parents ended up, and I never interfered with it, never interfered with the parents. I didn't think that would be right to do. But those parents ended up leaving the school district. And after I retired, the first year I retired, I got a phone call from my niece who lives in Texas, and she had the same problem. An ESE program was going to ram her daughter through a program that she did not agree with. And I knew how to help her, and we got it taken care of. But that's just something you might want to remember, that parents need an advocacy group when they have questions, and they don't always know how to do that. Another thing I wanted to talk about a bit about the mask. I want to assure parents that you don't have to worry. Your child will not be required to wear a mask. I didn't mention it the last time I was here because I was talking about your rights, your civil rights of free speech. I thought that was important. But Larry and I filed with the Sheriff's Department, the Florida Emergency Powers Act, and I'm sure that the board was notified. It's against the law in Florida to force a political body such as yourself, people that have been voted upon, to force children to wear a mask. So parents, don't worry. That's not going to happen. We've already filed. It's already been done. If anything happens in terms of what's the other issue of it's not, I want to say civil rights, but it's knowing if you've had the shot, if that comes up, the passport issue, that's not going to happen either. No one can define your choices in that, and your child cannot be forced to tell what they believe in terms of what their choice is.
Thanks
for listening.
Thank you. And I really want to encourage people not to take the whole 3 minutes so they can have everyone to speak. Larry Wilson.
I don't believe I will take the whole 3 minutes, so that will make you happy. I spoke last time about masks and similar things, but today I want to know if parents and community members, because I know you've already made the decision on masks being optional next year, which is only like, 10 days away or something like that. I want to know if parents and community members will be able to enter the office of local schools, and could parents go to classrooms and actually observe this year? And I'm too old to have children in school now, but would I have the right to go to Venice Elementary or to Venice High School and actually go in and take a look at the materials that are being used, the curricular materials? Am I going to be able to do that, or are they going to meet me at the door and say, oh, we're sorry, you don't have any business being here, or you have to prove that you're vaccinated, or you have to wear a mask or something like that? Are there restrictions that are going to be placed on people to get into the school buildings this year?
We're going to be discussing that next week at our workshop.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Eileen Green.
That's interesting what he just said.
Next, Deanne Dowell. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I don't know whether you people are teaching CRT or not, But I think the best way to solve this problem is to have video cameras in all the classrooms. You have video cameras in the buses. Police have to have video cameras. There's no reason why you shouldn't have a video camera. It'll protect you as the teacher and the student as well. And as far as the curriculum should be available to every person, perhaps maybe online before the beginning of the school year. And as far as health issues are not under the jurisdiction of the teacher. That is between the parent and the doctor. You have no right to tell a child what gender they want to be and how to become that gender. And that is between the parent and the physician and perhaps maybe the pastor or the priest of that child. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Deanne Dowdle and Rana Bazzini.
Good afternoon. I'll do my best to be brief. And that is, first of all, thanks to the school board for being here, for doing your work. It's not an easy job. You deal with a lot of challenges, and for that, we thank you for always showing up. And second, I want to support the agenda for mental health. It's critically important that we serve our students with every capacity that we have when it comes to supporting their mental health. The other thing is, I would like to urge all people, all parents, all educators to utilize science when it comes to making decisions about medical situations, when it comes to making decisions about masks, when it comes to making any decision. We need to err on the side of science. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rana Bazzini and then Jill Lewis, Spectre.
Hi, everybody. I'm back again. I appear before you today with a heavy heart. As a true believer in finding common ground with those with whom I disagree, the school board meetings of this past year have made me wonder if this is at all possible. The last meeting put me in a time warp. I was thrown back to the 1950s. June 1950, I graduated from high school the same year that Russian-backed North Korean troops invaded South Korea. The Cold War had turned warm. Russia had morphed from an ally during World War II to an adversary. Communism was the new bogeyman. As a college freshman, I was talking with other college freshmen, and I asked, what was communism all about? No one could give me an answer, but everyone knew it was evil. I was castigated for even asking. I was given a book where the cover was hidden, and I was told, don't let anybody see you reading this. It was Eric Hoffer's The True Believer. I recommend it to everybody. One of my parents' best friends was fired from his job. He was an excellent professor. Years ago, he had attended meetings of the Communist Party, which was not uncommon at that time. The House Un-Americans activity was alive and well. His wife committed suicide. George Santana said it best, those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Fast forward to today. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Let me talk about last school board meeting. I was very impressed with the presentation by Dana Martin. She spoke eloquently and rationally. She quoted from Dr. Barbara Russell regarding the negative aspects of children wearing masks. There is equal evidence from epidemiologists and the Academy of Pediatricians regarding the benefits. The relevant question is, for all of you, do the benefits outweigh the risks? That is, the risks of contracting COVID versus the social, emotional, and physical harm of masking. The former possibly resulting in illness, possibly death, or permanent symptoms. The latter, temporary effects or conditions that can be alleviated. Since everyone claims to have the best interests of our children the goal, please, please listen to one another, carefully weigh the risk versus the benefits. With the change in conditions, you, dear board members, may have to revisit the mask policy. Forget about the force. May the wisdom of Solomon be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Lewis Spector, followed by Marcus Spiegelman.
Good afternoon. I moved to Sarasota less than a year ago. Although I don't have children in the schools now, I've been a university educator for over 40 years and a public high school teacher for several years before that. And I remain extremely interested in and concerned about how we are educating our children, supporting our teachers, and investing in quality public education for all. I also chair Sarasota's League of Women Voters Education Action Team, although I'm not speaking today as a representative of the League, but rather am voicing my own opinion. After attending virtually a number of Sarasota School Board meetings and witnessing the charges and countercharges of indoctrination, racism, and fighting over mask mandates that dominated the meetings, I was a little concerned about how I, as an outsider, would be greeted when I visited Booker Middle School yesterday in order to donate a digital piano. I was more than a little pleasantly surprised. The assistant principal, Danny Leal, generously offered me a tour. This was my first time in one of Sarasota's public schools, and I was impressed with what I learned about how the school works with parents of the community, provides for students needing extra academic support, and offers professional development for teachers. I was also impressed with what I saw. Areas of the campus were being repainted to welcome new and returning students. Students' artwork and writing from this past school year were still on display. From the classroom seating arrangements and plastic face shields on tables, I could imagine in a very real way how students must have been affected by the separateness from their classmates, how teachers must have struggled and will continue to struggle with meeting every child's needs, and how the staff has had so many difficult challenges and decisions to make during this pandemic. The school board, too, has had to tackle complex issues that school boards around the country have never had to deal with until COVID struck. And yet, in spite of the generosity of spirit and dedication with which Sarasota school employees and board members have met the challenges of the pandemic, it seems there is a group of Sarasota parents and Sarasota residents who believe that these individuals do not have the children's best interests at heart. They've criticized sensible approaches.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Marcus Spiegelman.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcus Spiegelman. I have a child that goes to school in the Sarasota School District. Well, I'll leave it to everyone else to determine whether it's appropriate to refer for certain kinds of services.
Marcus, could you pull up the mic a little
Sure.
bit? Thank you.
I'm here primarily to talk about the agreement that I reviewed between yourselves and United Us. Just for some background, I have for 25 years worked for the largest healthcare exchange in the country. I'm usually on the other side presenting to you to get you to sign such agreements. This is my first opportunity to sit on the other side and tell you what I see within this agreement. This is what we call a software as a service agreement that has an evergreen renewal clause that on page 1 gives the contractor the opportunity to use your organization, likeness, image, and on all of their marketing materials. You have yet to install and utilize this software, and you are already allowing them to use you as a de facto reference to recruit people who are on the other side of the exchange from which revenue is generated. I don't understand why you would allow that without having first vetted the system and found it to be useful to the organization and without flaws. I'm not sure if you realize that also within the agreement itself, it provides for the organization to change without notifying you in advance the terms and conditions of the end user clause. And if the user uses the agreement, continues to use the software, they are by default agreeing to the additional terms and conditions. I'm relatively sure that your attorney will not have access to these records and will not be notified of these things because it says that they are not required to notify you. So I'm wondering why there isn't a clause in there that requires the attorney to be notified of these things and then provides for what we call a term for convenience clause, that if you do not accept the new terms and conditions, why you're not allowed to exit such an agreement. I don't see within the agreement the jurisdiction for where disputes will be handled, which should be locally. It may be that if there's a punch out from some of the Florida state statutes that call for this. I was not able to read all of them, but it's not clearly identified that this Delaware corporation won't have the ability to legally take care of disputes in Delaware as opposed to in the 12th Judicial District here in Florida. I had an interesting discussion with the attorney regarding whether or not this platform qualifies for what we call protected healthcare information or personally identifiable information. It's an interesting legal argument that you fall under Sherpa as opposed to some sort of HIPAA requirements. I could make the case both ways having reviewed this, but rather than doing that at this point, the question really is just because you may not have to do something, should you do something? There is no doubt that personal information is contained within the system, which is defined in part as name and date of birth. I am happy that they have a SOC 2 compliance.
Thank you. And I think they did say that they are HIPAA compliant, and they several associations. Alexis Spiegelman. HIPAA compliance has to do with the health information privacy. Carol Lerner, and please be ready. Maybe you need to come and stand up to the mic so we don't have to spend 30 seconds because we're down to those. Carol Lerner, could you come and stand here so that you'll be ready? Alexis?
Hello, and my name is Alexis Spiegelman. Thank you for hearing me this evening. It has been said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. While many of the topics being discussed today may be founded upon good intentions, such as providing helpful resources to families and students in need, our elected officials must temper their good intentions with their primary reason for existence, which is to secure the rights of we the people. Our school board officials were not elected to raise our children, direct our family medical decisions, or determine the values to which our families or children subscribe. Our school board was established to facilitate the education of Sarasota County's children. The school board is supposed to be apolitical in nature. Given that, it is deeply concerning that a program being discussed, Unite Us, was founded by a left-wing organization focused on progressive political activism. Lauren Powell Jobs and the Emerson Collective, as noted in the March 16, 2021 Bloomberg article titled Startup Unite Us, raises $150 million to link health and social services. First, they tried promoting BLM, a group of whose founders identified themselves as trained Marxists whose stated mission included the destruction of the nuclear family. Then it was CRT, another Marxist ideology. Now it's social emotional learning, CRT, under a new banner. Who is the coordinated care network? How are the referrals made? When is parental consent requested? How was the program selected? Are you providing a way for parents to opt out of profiling for referral purposes? Without more information, it almost sounds like our kids are going to become means for network providers to procure new clients. I urge you to consider other options that are not founded by political advocacy groups. There is a reason why the Sarasota community does not have confidence in your motives. I wanted to also bring up the right of privacy according to our Florida Constitution, which says every natural person has the right to be let alone and free from governmental intrusion into the person's private life, except as otherwise provided herein. I also wanted to bring up our parental rights, which states that that the parents have the sole right to make these kinds of decisions, to direct education, medical care, mental health, etc. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And before any mental health services are provided by the contractors, there is a parent signature required. Carol Lerner, and would Barbara Vaughn please step up and waiting?
Thank you very much. I had planned on reading a statement, my support for the expansion of mental health services. I just want to summarize that briefly because I think there's a more critical issue to address. Students and teachers have been under tremendous stress these past nearly 18 months. Even prior to COVID, there was tremendous stress. So it's absolutely critical that we expand mental health services as rapidly and as thoroughly. And of course, any service, a parent and any type of therapeutic service requires parental consent. I know this because I served as a social worker for 30 years in various school districts. So that process is there. But what I'd really like to talk about is the mask situation, because I think we have an emergency situation emerging. And I think there's going to be a big conflict from what the federal government is saying, what the CDC is saying, and what our governor is saying and threatening to do. What our governor has said is if there is a mask mandate for children in schools, that he will call a special session of the legislature and pass a law to make sure that doesn't happen. To me, that doesn't make sense. And please listen to me. We are back to 1,300 cases a day. We're back to the period of last summer and last winter when we had a crisis. Hospitals are now filling up. 7 children have died in Florida, 7 children under 16, probably another 3 or 4 between the ages of 16 and 18 have died. So probably at least 10 children have died. The current variant is a very serious variant, and children are coming down with it, and children are being hospitalized. So if we don't want to have a situation of trauma, and then mental health services will be absolutely critical. We really do, as people have said, we really need to go with the science. And I trust that this leadership here and the school board members will do that and make the correct decision for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Vaughn, and then Brian Polizzi.
Hi, my name is Barbara Vaughn. And in case you hadn't noticed, this is not 1950. And most people in this room, I think, are probably somewhat knowledgeable about communism. And they recognize it when they see it. And I'm speaking of CRT, which is nothing more than a rewrite of Marxist policy. The only difference here is that Marx used class to divide people. And that won't work in America because you're not locked into whatever class you were born into. You're not locked into anything beyond what your own knowledge, your efforts, your hard work. You can be anything you want to be. And I love it when I hear black parents tell that to their black children. Amen. The biggest thing I want you all to understand today is these people in this room are voters. They care about who's on their school board and what decisions they're making. They are paying attention, and they will go to the polls and vote based on what they've seen and heard in these meetings. So you better be paying attention too, because we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian and Michael Zarzano, please stand up and be ready.
I am Brian Polizzi, and I have 3 children who are under 12, and they are attending Sarasota schools. I have reviewed the mask policy, and I find it entirely lacking. I think that you are not paying attention to the American Academy of Pediatrics, which has recommended that all children under 12 who are not eligible to be vaccinated wear masks consistently indoors, and that mask policies are part of a layered strategy to prevent the spread of COVID to particularly unvaccinated people. I don't think that you have paid attention to the Center for Disease Control, which has also stated the same thing. In fact, today they have revised their strategy to include all children under 12 and staff for all schools to prevent the spread of COVID. These are very important things, and these are not political things. These are the lives of our children. And that is your mandate. Your mandate is to educate and to protect our children. It says here in your vision statement, School District of Sarasota County places learning at the center of its activities to enable all learners to lead productive, responsible, and healthful lives. You also have the ability to create an emergency action to change your policy before the start of the school year. And I hope that you do so, because to do anything less is absolutely irresponsible. And I know that you're facing a mandate from the governor, who has claimed that our children need to breathe and who has threatened the funding for our schools in Sarasota County if we implement a mandatory mask policy. And I'm asking you to ignore the politics in this situation and to do what is right and to protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will, no, please no clapping. We will be discussing the new policies on,
Very classy. Very classy.
we will be discussing mask policies at our August 3rd workshop. And we will have experts online. Michael Zarzano, then David Ellis.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Anthony Zarzano. I'm here to speak to you about the mask scheme that you are perpetrating upon the children. We, the people, have an agreement called a contract or a compact or a constitution, and you are restrained by it. At least you're supposed to. That contract says governments are instituted among men, and they derive their just power by the consent of the governed. And if you don't have our consent, you don't have legitimate power. You are illegitimate. And I would like you to think for a minute, if you were in 1791, Boston, America, what do you think our founders would be doing with those of you trying to force their children to cover their face for 6 to 7 hours a day? What do you think they would do to you? Do you have any idea? I think you really need to think long and hard, because we, the people, give you consent. And if we say no, your decision and power is illegitimate, and you are illegitimate. You really need to consider this. And as far as you perpetrating a philosophy that Susie wants to be Johnny and Johnny wants to be a Susie, do you know the culture of this community? 20 years ago, you would have been laughed out of town, maybe even 15. That's right. You would have been a laughingstock. Shame on you. This is a strong Christian conservative community. How dare you force these perverted beliefs upon the decent Christian people of Sarasota, Florida. You want to learn about communism? The lady was totally correct. Visit our website, thefreedomfire.org. You're not Democrats. You're not socialist. You're communist. It's just that simple. That's right. Be warned. Wake up. We have the right in the Florida Constitution, under the right to assemble, the First Amendment of freedom of speech. And the purpose is that we may instruct our representatives. That's why we are to assemble, that you may follow our instruction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a meeting of the school board designed to conduct the business of the school board, not necessarily a town hall forum. David Ellis and Larry Wilson will follow.
School board members, Commissioner, I'm David Ellis. I live here in Sarasota County. I have two children who've been in the school last year, and I really didn't come to be political today. I really just wanted to come and say thank you. My daughter graduated from Venice High School this year, just a few weeks ago, and she got a scholarship to go to college. She got a great education, and it means so much to us what it went through, and realized there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of issues. Obviously, we talked about some of those today, and I'm sure we'll keep talking about them. But at the same time, I know it's been difficult. Y'all have had to make difficult decisions. My mom was a school teacher for over 30 years here in Florida, and I got to see how hard it was for her to be a teacher under normal circumstances, but what the teachers have gone through the last year. And my daughter, last night, she got home from a trip. She opened a letter, and she had 2 AP tests, and she got 2 5s. Woo. And I was just so proud in a year where we kind of started the year saying, I wonder if they'll learn anything. And she did. And I know we overcame things. And by the way, I have an extraordinary daughter, so I'm just proud of that. And then my youngest daughter went to Lower Nokomis High School. She's in the ESE program there. And her teachers, Ms. Radick and Ms. Farmer and Mr. Dave, that worked with her and dealt with all those issues for remote learning for these very unique and special kids. I'm just so proud. And the thing that makes me excited is because kids with special needs, and my daughter was born with Down syndrome, transitions aren't easy for them. And we really worried about, was she going to be ready and want to go to high school? Because she'd been in kind of this great place with all these people loving on her. And every day she says to us, I'm so excited. I can't wait to go to high school. And I'm just so proud of her, the teachers. I mean, we like to think we take a little credit as parents, but those teachers really worked with her and got her ready to make that transition. And it just means a lot to me. And I know you guys have faced enormous issues that have all kinds of political and social ramifications. And it hasn't been easy, I'm sure. And I'm sure even amongst yourselves, it hasn't been easy. But I just wanted to say, it means a lot to me. And, you know, as a business person, we face those issues in our business place, and we faced them in our home. But as a business person and as a parent, especially as a parent, I just want to say thank you for all the work the school system's done to help my children grow and be better people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ellis. Larry Wilson? You already spoke. We filled out 2 cards. Well, good. Esther Rockwell? And followed by Mary Daly.
Good afternoon. I've been a resident of Sarasota for 36 years, and my son had gone and graduated from Riverview. I just would like to point out, first of all, that I would like to support Bridget Ziegler's policy proposing which will allow parents to record their child's individual education plan and meetings. Transparency benefits everyone. I would just like to point that out. Number 1, I brought up the fact that I was concerned about the vaccinations and the making it mandatory. I would like to point out that there are a lot of different there are certain networks that only provide you the very liberal point of view on some of this stuff. So a lot of these people are being really frightened about what they hear, but they don't always hear the opposite side. They don't hear both sides of the story. And I agree with our governor. Our governor has had very good intentions of being able to help us out, and we are very thankful that he's been able to do that. But there have been many, many deaths and injuries of the vaccine. And if you collect all of the ones in Europe, UK, and the US combined, as of 9th of July of this year, there have been over 64,934 people who have died or been injured. So that's something to be considered. I would like to point out something that I just received yesterday. A woman from Africa came to this country, I guess she's from Nigeria, and she was with the Baptist Church and other churches, and she worked there as a medical assistant in a clinic in Minneapolis and was instructed to take the COVID-19 vaccines. She complied, and immediately after getting the second injection, according to her husband, she started to experience chest pain at work. Things went downhill fast after that, as the all too familiar symptoms of blood clots, known side effects of the Pfizer COVID-19 shots, were found in her heart. And today she had to have both legs of hers amputated and also her hands. And I have a picture of her, and I can bring that to your attention. You can keep it and see it for yourself. And I would like to point out about the masks. There are so many things that people have said about the masks, but they don't also tell you the bad things. Those children that are wearing the masks
Thank you.
diseases in those.
And last, Mary Daly.
Hello. My name is Mary Daly. I'm a retired educator and a 20-year resident of Sarasota. I came here today because I was so appalled watching the last meeting. I felt my blood pressure raise. I was so very disturbed by the lack of respect for each of you, by the anger that was shown by the audience, by the divisiveness of our community. You all make very difficult decisions for the health and the safety of our kids. Last fall, you had to decide not only about masks, but about deputies in schools and police cars and shootings and all of the things that affect our students. I support the idea of an increased mental health referrals within the school. I'm also concerned about the misinformation that is going around in the community about the critical race theory. I know from my time at Northwestern that this is something that universities use to examine history. It is not something that is taught in schools. And I hope that when you make your decisions, you weigh the information that you get and know that you are appreciated by the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The hearing of citizens is over. We only have 2 minutes left, but I'd like to extend the meeting by 5 minutes to allow any board member who wishes to speak a brief time before we get into the 5:15 budget meeting. Anybody wanting to speak? Nobody wanting to speak. Again, August 3rd, we will talk more about the masks policy at our workshop. At this time, and we're looking at those numbers. We had all thought that, we had been over that. We could start the school year in a normal fashion, but there still isn't enough vaccinations in the district to have the herd immunity, so we are seeing another wave. I know even vaccinated people are getting the COVID now, but again, they are not the ones in the hospital. The numbers in the hospital have grown tremendously, and look at those numbers, and we will be looking at those numbers when we come back. Our numbers went from 0 in our district just last week. We have 20 out this morning, we heard, and 40 that are now quarantined. If you are vaccinated, teachers, staff, and students will not have to quarantine. So those parents and those students and that staff who do not want to have to stay home and not come to school, we urge them to get the vaccine. That's the only thing I can do right now is just encourage you. to do that. We can't force anyone to. Did you want to say something?
I just want to say that the quarantine, clarify and have it validated that the quarantine process isn't our decision-making. We are subject to the local Board of Health and the rules they impose on us. I wanted to make that clarification.
That's clear. And we don't make the decision on who it is, so we don't have the information. We don't have the information on our teachers. We don't have the information on our staff. We don't have the information on our students, who is vaccinated and who is not. We're just hearing, from the community, but who is in the hospital, and those are the things that we'll be looking at. With that, it's 5 o'clock, and we call the meeting is adjourned, and we will be here for the 5:15 budget hearing. But we are adjourned, and thank you for coming. Out to the anteroom or to the parking.
I'll call you back in a second. We'll switch over.